Child prostitution begins at home. Most children who become prostitutes in America were sexually abused at the hands of their first caregivers. They learn at a very early age how to disassociate their feelings from their bodies. They've had to learn how to manipulate, how to size up others, how to outsmart others they do not respect. This process creates a very specific challenge to social workers and traditional cognitive therapists. The child who suffered at the hands of vicious, vile pimps often demeans or pushes away the do-gooder because they don't believe there are any good people in the world. Providing a stable home, a loving environment, nurturing staff, and an education is only part of the job. We must teach our children that there are good people in the world who are willing to help them and that can be trusted. But they will act out time and time again to prove to the do-gooder that they are not worth saving. Through transcendental meditation, the initial process requires some cognitive process to where they realize the exploitation, they feel it, and they put it out to where it becomes outside of them rather than something that defines them. They start to experience a peacefulness, a goodness, and a childlike innocence. They start to radiate from within very much like a concentric circle, and they begin to shed those bad memories. And they're not required to relive the trauma again and again as required by traditional cognitive psychotherapy. When an abuser threatens a child or says mean things to the child's response is to run towards the abuser and to behave in a very predictable kind of way that is harmful to the child. Children who are victimized by prostitution are often required to work with law enforcement in the arrest and the prosecution of the pimp or trafficker. Frequently, they're required to call the pimp, and the phone call is tape recorded, and they're forced to face him down and to get him, most typically him or her, to say that they're going to use the child for prostitution, for sexual acts, for money, and take the money. This process can be very damaging to the child if it's not handled appropriately. In recent times, a young woman who was required to make a telephone call in the presence of law enforcement, and the call was tape recorded with the pimp, he said to her, "You're a hoe. You're a hope to die hoe. You're always going to be a hoe. Even your dad knew you were a hoe, and that's why he sexually abused you when you were 5. She looked at me, and I looked at her, and we smiled with each other's eyes. And she finished the phone call and got him to say the things that needed to be said for a successful arrest and a prosecution. And when she hung up the phone, she looked at me and she smiled and she said, "Poor thing." The regular practice of transcendental meditation twice a day for 15 minutes the child begins to learn to pause, process, and no longer is vulnerable to the emotional manipulations of the abuser, the pimp, the manipulator, or the trafficker. The child begins to learn from their inner strength who is good and who is bad. And sometimes for the first time in their life, they learn to act rather than react in response to the harmful people. By reaching into the depths of their souls, they find love, happiness, and they attract more of the same. My success with boys and girls who've been victimized by prostitution has come from a set of skills that allowed me to share their reality. That process took a toll on me, as it does with other caring professions, because oftentimes we feel isolated and detached in our attempts to protect ourselves from the intense feelings that we're confronted with on a day-by-day basis for many, many years. Through my 2 years of regular transcendental meditation practice, I had to learn, and I did learn, that there were good people in the world that would also help me rescue America's children from the ravages of prostitution right here in the United States. Transcendental meditation led me to abandon my restricted thinking that limited children of the night to children under the age of 18 and children who are willing to travel to Van Nuys, California, and live in the children of the night home. Through my daily routine meditations, I learned that I could take my 33 years of experience and expertise and teach drop-in centers, outreach programs, and other shelters throughout America how to do educational services to the lowest level person on the street, to make the opportunity of a general education degree available to anyone who was living on the streets, to link people who lived on the streets to premier mental health services by providing access to supplemental Social Security benefits that were designed for people who were psychotic and forced to live on the streets. Transcendental meditation has led me to an exciting and challenging, cost-effective solution to people and young people who are forced to live on the streets, and will leave a permanent and indelible mark on the standard of care for young people. For other caregivers who want to help the less fortunate, and many do, we must first heal ourselves and discover our inner strength and the peacefulness, which is where all of our creativity, love, and nurturing resides. We become so busy and so stressed in our efforts to help others, and we protect ourselves by shutting down our feelings. And we as caregivers should not be overlooked in the process of rescuing those who are less fortunate. God gave me the gift to reach into the hearts of children and to encourage them and help them change their futures. That gift was both a gift and a burden until Emily Lynch reached out and told me about the David Lynch Foundation. The David Lynch Foundation has taught me that children can be taught transcendental meditation and change their lives, that these children can be reached, children that most people believe are unreachable and unchangeable. And for that, I will always be grateful. Thank you.